Anne Frank is Anita Franco, and she's a pansexual Latinx protagonist, and we are following her journey of discovery in her attic as she grapples with the troubles of being a young girl trying to survive the Nazis with a strong Black mother and a neurodivergent father.
My brain, I feel grief, seems it only gets worse. Constant pain, no relief, cause I'm neurodiverse. So I combat stigmas like I'm dodging bombs.
Welcome to the Unspeakeasy podcast. The podcast, formerly known as The Unspeakable, for conversations that are surprising and thought-provoking without being rage-baity. Our motto for 2026, less culture wars, more culture. I am your host, Meghan Daum. My guest is PJ Adzima. He is a New York-based actor and comedian who spent 9 years in the Book of Mormon across various productions, including Broadway. Is that right, PJ? 9 years?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. All right. You are the founder of Stage Time, an underground-style variety theater company and artist collective in New York City. And PJ is also the producer of Slam Frank, a satirical hip-hop musical that tells the story of Anne Frank through an intersectional, multi-ethnic, genderqueer, Afro-Latin hip-hop lens. We have just added PJ as a guest speaker at our Unspeakeasy retreat in October. That is our second annual small gathering for big ideas co-ed retreat that's happening in Kingston, New York. And we are thrilled about that, just as I am thrilled to talk with you now. So PJ, welcome.
Thank you so much, Meghan. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm really so excited to be sitting down and talking to you.
Yeah, there is so much to cover here. And this podcast, just so you know, as well as the community around this podcast and the events we do and the connections that we facilitate, has come about very much as a response to what a lot of people saw as a flattening of culture and the arts that started at least 10 years ago. So you are now 33 years old, I think. And
that's correct.
That's correct. Okay. And you represent what seems to be a real effort to move past that phase. At least I kind of see it that way. So we're going to talk about what you're doing at Stage Time and about Slam Frank and all of that. But I was hoping you might describe what the theater world was like when you entered it more than a decade ago.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been a professional performer since I was a kid. So this has been a lifelong passion of mine. I discovered the performing arts at a very young age, about 8 years old. So I really grew up in the arts. I've always been in the performing arts of many different kinds. And I moved to New York City at 18 to pursue acting and to be, on Broadway is my biggest dream. And I was lucky enough to have that come true in the Book of Mormon, which is my all-time favorite dream musical, and was my biggest dream was to be a part of the South Park musical. Actually, when you were growing up and listening to show tunes, was the Book of Mormon part of that? 100%. You cannot be as white as I am and a comedic performer and not have everybody on the street tell you that you should be in the Book of Mormon. Okay. Which I thought that it meant that they jinxed it, that it was never going to happen. But I was actually lucky enough to live my dream come true, my dream role in my dream show on Broadway, and in a show that is so delightfully irreverent, is something that is like the I think greatest musical of all time. It's absolutely hysterical. It is so wildly entertaining and pushes the boundaries of comedy and of culture, and really is just a dangerous, beautiful, heartfelt show. And I like to say that I went to the school of South Park. I grew up on their, all of their work, and then to be, the person who was really holding that baton, in their production around the world, both on the national tour in Australia and on Broadway. I always, came from and enjoyed how edgy and incredibly thought-provoking all of their work was, and it was such a pleasure to be a part of that legacy.
Yeah, it seems like the Book of Mormon, it's been around long enough that it has survived this most recent iteration. I mean, is that what it is? Because as you're talking, I'm thinking it's kind of, I don't know if it's surprising that it has survived this, this latest wave of culture wars? Is it just because it was already there and it was already a hit and it had proven itself?
We talk about that a lot. Like, if you could make Book of Mormon today, and I think that it's absolutely a product of its time. I think that, it came out in the Obama administration, right? So, but it still is so incredibly edgy, and it's still, it has audiences gasping. But it's definitely, times have changed a bit with it. Like, it is. It's not as transgressive. I think that our tastes have really evolved, and what we shock a little less easy these days, it seems, in some ways. But yeah, no, I think that it's absolutely a product of its time, but it also really threads the needle. I think that what the South Park writers do, and Bobby Lopez, is they really get as close as they can to the fatted calf, and then slaughter it still. So it really is irreverent and gleeful while still being heartfelt. And I describe the show as a magic trick, right? It shouldn't work. It should be something that, is canceled and run away from. But they are such masterful writers and songwriters that you stay on the ride and you leave, singing the songs. I'm not sure if I can swear on this podcast or not.
Oh, yes.
Great. Well, it's a 15-year spoiler, but "Fuck You, God" is the fourth song in the whole show. And by the end of the musical, you've got, tourists from Ohio singing it, walking down the street. So it really does the impossible by being so dangerous, almost so taboo, that it can get an exemption from what I think you're referring to as far as like the wave of culture war that's happened since.
Yeah. Although now that I'm thinking of it, I mean, does Book of Mormon make fun of everybody, or is it sort of like, white Mormons? I can't remember. I saw the show a long time ago.
I'd say if you have to be able to take a Jesus joke, right? So it is.
Yes, which is allowed. I mean, you're punching up when you're making fun of Jesus, right? I mean, that's the ultimate punching up, I suppose. Is making fun of God and Jesus.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, Mormons are squarely in the crosshairs for them, but it's more, about anybody who really is. I'd say more than making fun of Jesus, it's, poking holes in faith and why people believe things and why people, build their entire identities around that faith, and how, when confronted with earth-shattering revelations, it's like, do you dig in, or do you open your mind? Are you open to change, or are you set in your ways? Is it dogma, or can you grow? Can you learn from your experiences? And that's, I think, the big journey of our protagonist, Elder Price, is being able to, come in with his own sense of knowing exactly how the world works, knowing exactly his role in it, and then being disillusioned and growing. And thus us as the audience with him are challenged to grow as well.
Yeah, so it was really ahead of its time in that way. So the theater world has been notably captured by whatever you want to call it. I don't like to use the word woke because it's reductive and it's easily weaponized, but let's just call it extreme identity orientation. So we had, I'm sure you remember in 2020, there was the letter, the Dear White Theater, We See You letter. And this was an open letter that came, it was the BIPOC demands for white American theater. And it was sort of a cri de coeur, sort of pointing out all of the ways that the theater was, not centering anybody but whites. And they were making, lots of demands, including things, ultimately, like, I think this shouldn't have been, they didn't want white critics reviewing certain shows. There would be quotas for productions. And I think, we don't necessarily need to comment on that letter per se, but it was so illustrative of a certain ethos in the arts and in particularly theater at that time. And I wonder if what you were doing around then, and if that informed the approach you're taking now, because obviously Slam Frank, which we're going to talk about, is reacting to that kind of world.
Yeah, I mean, the American theater has gone through an incredibly interesting change in the past 10 years. We've really, I believe, a very unique microcosm for the macrocosm of American culture. It really is a small community. there's not a lot of us doing it. There are less people on Broadway than there are in the Olympics every 4 years. So this is a very small community, and it does feel like the voices and what's trending and how to actually stay in that pocket of what's relevant and what is acceptable or not acceptable, or people's grievances and the systemic challenges of putting on this art form is something that feels like is always being examined, and I'm always being critical of. And so as far as the publication of that manifesto, it was exactly what it was. It was a microcosm of the larger moment. We were having a national reckoning. We're having a moment where every single piece of culture was being combed over through the BLM lens, and with nothing to do but sit around and not make theater for years. It was the first to go, is the last to come back. Every grievance that anybody ever had, any single thing that this institution either had let people down, or because there's a lot about what was mentioned in that manifesto that had good points, and there's a lot of things about it that some may say is a bridge too far. And I think that this is kind of the middle ground of what we're seeing all these years later. Is what is the answer to that? And have we learned something? Have we grown from this? Or are we destined to be falling into the same theatrical patterns of how theater was made, for 100 years? As a culture maker who, I sat and watched. I wasn't making any theater in that time. And I think that in coming back, Broadway has really struggled to take what these ideals, are, and to implement them into what is, again, as small of an ecosystem as possible. It's definitely a very interesting thing that has been a part of theater's DNA now for the past 10 years. And yes, is exactly what we were tackling when it comes to Slam Frank.
Yeah. So just a couple of the demands from that letter, casting and staffing quotas, for instance, production and design teams to be 50% or more BIPOC, cast and creative teams at least half BIPOC. Pay structures, actors sharing equal billing to be paid comparably. That seems fair enough. A cap tying the highest paid staff member's salary to no more than 10 times the lowest paid. Okay. We also have things like rehearsal room practices, land acknowledgements built into the rehearsal process, mandatory intimacy directors for any show, regardless of nudity. I don't know about intimacy directors. Maybe you can speak to that, but, the land acknowledgement thing, did that ever take off?
No, I can't say that it did. Although, we actually, the land acknowledgement is something that, became very popular and is exactly how we start Slam Frank. Slam Frank begins with a land acknowledgement because of this, right? Like these ways of what I think we ultimately are grappling with, which is what is, with good intention, and then what is performative. How can you, by being like, well, I made the acknowledgement, so now I'm free of sin. Like, what is the way that we can check all the boxes and purify our souls through this performance, and how does it actually move the needle when it comes to the substance of what's being done or the work being done? Actually, to your point about intimacy directors, I think that intimacy directors is a really big eye roll in the industry, especially being mandatory regardless of the content of the shows. It's like
if it's a production of Oklahoma or something, you need an intimacy director. One little kiss.
What I push back against in general, I think, is the way that theater is a formula, right? Being like, if we check all these boxes, not only will it doesn't feel like it's in serving the quality of the show, it's serving like a moralistic purpose, right? It's like, if we do this, then we will be doing the right thing, and by doing the right thing, everything will be okay. And what really frustrated me in thinking of making art by checking a series of boxes is that none of it is reflective of the quality of the experience or the quality of the actual product. And I think that ends up being a crisis, where you go, oh, well, I checked every box, and so I've made everybody happy. But have I made a good piece of art? Have I made an entertaining night at the theater? And that is, I found to not often be the case. And I think that, by distilling something that is so ephemeral and is so so case by case and so unique. Every show should be catered to. It should be a bespoke suit. And what I chafed against in this is the idea that by following, every mandate, that you will, ascend to heaven in some way. And that is not in fact the case.
So let's talk about Slam Frank. I think the reason that you came across my radar was the arrival of this mysterious yet very exciting show onto the scene. So Slam Frank, it's you're the producer. It was created by Andrew Fox and Joel Sinesky. And
Joel Sinesky, yes.
Sinesky, yeah, excuse me. And my understanding is that it started because somebody legitimately in some kind of forum, I don't know if it was a Reddit forum or somewhere, posed the question. They were talking about production of The Diary of Anne Frank, and somebody asked, did Anne Frank ever examine her white privilege? And this question was asked in earnest. And apparently this is what prompted the creators of this show to develop this just quite extraordinary piece.
Yes, that is the, a real Twitter thread that I like to say broke the brain of Andrew Fox. Andrew Fox is our mad scientist who dreamt up Slam Frank. And really, Slam Frank is is the product of, artists that are, have followed every letter, right? I think that it's, the kind of the bridge too far for him as a Jewish man, and the entire team is Jewish except for myself. I'm the token goy. Really is what is, where is the line? And when it comes to making sure everybody's included and making sure that, who's got privilege, who is, oppressed, who is more oppressed than everybody else, and how come Jews are always sidelined, really is his thing with identity. It's, to not see the irony of, saying that Anne Frank, who was murdered as a child in the Holocaust, had privilege because of her ethnicity, is now we've tipped into absurdity, right? And Slam Frank, for me, it really is a farce. It lives as an absurd play because that's what it can feel like when you're twisting yourself into knots to check every box. And so this mental, this past 10 years, where with good intentions, we have painted ourselves into this corner where, of course, everybody should be represented. Of course, we should be making workplaces that are diverse and safe and reflective of this. And you agree yourself into absurdities that then start to eat their own tail.
Right.
And this is the piece of theater that we've made eats its own tail and is a reflection of that mental gymnastics that I feel like we've all been doing for the past 10 years.
Okay, so let's just watch.
Say my fucking name, put the plate down. I'm practicing, I put more chapters in. My relentless attitude factors in fact is that I'm an addict. I'm at it up in this attic. I mainline all this blacking, then go back in like it's a habit. I'm finna rewrite my diary until the publishers are hiring me. And I'ma let out this fire in me. I'm finna rewrite my diary.
Anne Frank in this show, she is actually is she Latinx? What? She's not actually Jewish. Is her name?
Anne Frank is Anita Franco.
Okay.
And she's a pansexual Latinx protagonist, and we are following her journey of discovery in her attic as she grapples with the troubles of being a young girl trying to survive the Nazis with a strong Black mother and a neurodivergent father. And this is really, it's a journey to make Anne's story more accessible. It's really, we believe that for a long time, it's a tragedy that we don't have more young Black and brown girls who can relate to the Holocaust. And now through the work of this show, we believe that we've really made the story more accessible to everybody.
Okay. And she does live in a problematic. We should say.
Yes, well, that's yes. The problematic is our go-to. We have it on merch. We have it on hats. So I again, the ludicrousness of that statement, the farce of how Slam Frank came to be is exactly this, right? So Slam Frank, the are they kidding? Is this real? The Funhouse mirrors game of this musical is what lit the internet on fire. So we actually became, in posting this, Andrew Fox, our mad genius, with a straight face, with saying all these things, it was absolutely believable. People could not tell where the satire was for a very long time because of how insane the internet has gotten and how culture has gotten. And so this being this Funhouse mirror moment, and the game being, is it real? Are they in on this? Is this as ridiculous as it seems? And that being the game for a long time is what made the show incredibly popular on the internet before we had even sold a ticket. And this is what really lit me up as a producer, is I saw that there was a show, a musical, that was getting viral attention before even existing in the real world. It was so topical. It was so funny. It was so center of the bullseye when it came to being pitch perfect, when it came to satirizing this past 10 years of making culture, that people couldn't get enough of it. And I said, oh my gosh, I have to see how far this rabbit hole goes. And when I found the script and when I heard the music for the first time, I said, not only is this center of the bullseye as a satire of American culture, it's also the best musical score I've heard since the Book of Mormon, and I would know. And that's what made me jump up and down and say, please, 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 I need to produce your show and bring it as far as we can possibly get away with.
Yeah, I will echo that. When the excerpts that I have heard, the music is terrific. It's like legitimately good. It's not a joke. It's not novelty.
A joke. Slam Frank is a real musical. And that became our entire campaign, is that like, no. We are going to be as true. We are going to check every box as we possibly can. Like, we are going to follow all of the rules that have been posited for how to make great theater. We are going to make sure that it is done to the best of our ability, despite it being a satire, because it is truly an exhibition of excellence. And from when it comes to the writers and when it comes to our ability to produce it, I love the musical theater. I love this art form. And I love this show and its ability to be not only a piece that is critical of the culture and irreverent to the fatted calf, but it also is doing it by flexing those muscles to the best of our ability. That is actually legitimate, to show that we are skilled professionals and practitioners of this art form we love.
So obviously there are many nods to Hamilton. Your logo is similar to the Hamilton logo, and the whole rap genre, the cadence of many of the numbers, and the sort of overall aesthetic of the sort of the musical palette of the show has a lot of Hamilton. Lot of Hamilton references, although you also go out of that and there's a lot of these kind of ballad, kind of like this sort of contemporary pop musical ballad tropes. Oh, yes. And it's quite good on top of, sort of winking at these things.
Yes, no, it's a love letter to the musical theater, right? And this is exactly what I recognized in it as being the same thing as Book of Mormon. Book of Mormon is a beautifully written score that borrows and pays homage to the tent poles of our industry, and we are doing the same thing. We are making music that is just as catchy and as enjoyable to listen to as Dear Evan Hansen or Spring Awakening or Hamilton, because these are the modern musicals that have defined the past 15, 20 years of the art form. And we are standing on their shoulders while lovingly subverting them.
Father barks,
don't just say,
so I can't pirouette. Then he remarks,
dancing's gay.
And my deepest regret is I can't show LGBTQ plus pride. I man up just for a minute, and I act the norm as conformity. Outside they're fighting a war, but in here I'm fighting expectations. I'm fighting expectations.
I think it's boring to stick to one joke too, right? Like the reinvention of comedy is once you get the joke must change or else it stops being funny. And that's what Slam Frank does that I can't get enough of. It made me fall in love with it is even the conceit that, oh, it's, we're going to be making fun of Hamilton. And then every time you think you get it, it changes. And every time you think you get it, it changes again. So by the time you walk out of the theater, you can't believe the roller coaster that you've been on. And that's for me, the most thrilling thing of any live show, because I think the minute you get ahead of a piece of art like that, you check out. We're especially savvy, art going culture lovers like ourselves. If you're not keeping people guessing, then you're no longer driving. And people start thinking about the babysitter at home or what they're getting for dinner after the show. And that is the biggest sin of all.
Well, and that would explain why Ben Brantley gave you a favorable review in the New York Times. I mean, at first I was reading about the show and I thought, oh my God, this is the kind of thing that's going to delight certain audiences, but I would be very surprised if mainstream media kind of got on board. But in fact, you have had serious critics take the show very seriously. So what was it like to read this glowing review from Ben Brantley?
Oh, it was extraordinary. It was one of the best moments of my career, especially because you hope people get it, right? Like you make something like this and we're like, are we way too inside the joke?
Right.
Like, is my career over? Like there were a couple of rehearsals that like when I know what's funny and I know what it's supposed to be, but we're not there yet. But that's the risk. That's like this it was a beautiful moment to see, oh my gosh, people get it. And we are so far on the outside. We've hopped the tracks and are now, the first people to seriously be able to criticize and to poke fun at what has happened in the culture in the past 10 years in a way that is accessible to those who are guilty of it. And this is what I like to say, it's like, I am passionate about this show and making fun of it because I am guilty of all of these tropes, right? Like I am extraordinarily liberal and and this is me laughing at myself at how far and how twisted into knots I have been in trying to make everybody happy. And this being, a show that I think is shedding that and saying, if we're trying to make everybody happy, we're not making anybody happy.
Right.
And I believe that great art has to have an opinion. And that opinion is often best when messy and jagged and complicated. And so this is a jagged and messy and complicated show that, is going to continue to surprise and delight and offend many, many different audiences for what I'm hoping is a long time to come.
Can you give us a few more examples? You don't have to give away the story, but what are some sort of major plot points that might surprise us?
Peter Van Dan has a beautiful coming out song about being non-binary, which I consider to be an opus of the medium, and also herstory, the importance of women, and how if we have Ava Braun instead of Hitler, there'd be no genocide. And that the answer is to cast all men aside and the world will be a beautiful place. These tropes that we love, that we sing so earnestly, and are obvious talking points, and to have it be turned into music and then sung by the Frank family, it breaks the brain, right? Like that, for me, the purpose of the show is to be such a roller coaster and to be so contradictory that you really are unable to hold all of these thoughts in your head at once. And that is, I think, the purpose of absurdism. And, for me, the show does fit more of a downtown tradition than a Broadway tradition. This is really a show that is, and that's why I was so passionate about bringing it downtown. We are, coming to the Orpheum Theater on the Lower East Side on St. Mark's and 2nd Avenue. We are not in Midtown. We are not a Broadway show. I want us to be, compared to pieces that you'd find at La Mama in the 70s.
I was going to say, exactly.
We are jagged, we are in your face, and we are ugly. It isn't like we are here to really kind of just break this mental construct that I feel like we've been trying to, make art within and explode it open, because we are, we're in an insane world right now, and things are changing so fast, and it feels like our art, is kind of caged in by the inability to be offensive. And to
have a point of view. I mean,
right.
Art is about having a point of view, which by definition is one point of view. And if you try to do too many, like you just said, it's nothing. You've pleased nobody.
You please nobody, right? And this is and that was a big struggle of mine that I saw, and I felt myself crunching from within, and just trying to make everybody happy, and thus making nobody happy. And yeah, Slam Frank it's taught me a lot about even pushing myself out of my comfort zone in producing it. I mean, I've had a lot of friends who are mad at me for making this show happen.
Oh, really? Well, yeah.
Oh, for sure. Again, I am a very, very liberal man.
You don't have to be sure. Yes.
No, but this is this is the point, right? Is that I want to be able to laugh at myself, but some people aren't ready for that. And some people aren't willing to do that. But I think that's we have to be able to buck trends and to push ourselves outside of what is safe in order to find out what is next and to find out what is true.
Yeah. So can you give any examples of ways that you twisted yourself up in knots that you are now able to poke fun at yourself? Is there anything that sticks in your mind that was particularly mentally gymnastic?
I mean, I think it's for me, it's best intention, right? It's I'm trying to be as inclusive and as respectful as possible, and to put your money where your mouth is, and really step aside and to make space. And in the act of that, it's what I've found is sometimes it's never good enough. Has been an experience that I think that a lot of people might be able to agree with. But for me, it's a general sense of hearing how people have been reacting to these past 10 years, and are we better for it as a culture, is the question that I don't have an answer to, right? It feels like we're chafing at and have caused more division when I want to have more unity. And I think that there is actually a desire for people to have more unity. It gets in the way sometimes because we have not checked every box. And I found that to be something that is continuously frustrating as a producer and as an artist, and just trying to again make everybody happy, and finding that no matter what, even with best intentions, you're always gonna be putting your foot in your mouth.
I mean, Hamilton is really, I think, it's probably the primary example of making everybody happy. Everybody likes it. Everybody loves it. Nobody doesn't like it.
No, it's extraordinary. It's a miracle. It shouldn't exist, right? It was a Faustian bargain that Lin-Manuel Miranda made to make something that perfect. But it's also it's that idealistic. It is the product of the Obama administration. It is this moment when everything was great, and we were going to be able to bury the hatchet on our complicated past and move forward towards a bright utopia that where it was all going to work, and the betrayal of the next 10 years of culture that kind of followed the Hamilton's moment, really felt like this fall from grace culturally. And I think that it's like this it's a perfect piece of culture when it comes to observing it in relation to the context in which it was made. Like it is in the history books. It's like you couldn't ask for a better exclamation point to the Obama administration before everything
Right.
went absolutely crazy.
That is such a good point. So speaking of people getting it, not getting it, what was it like to hold auditions? You've got actors coming in, they are reading from the script, they're, learning parts of the songs and how did that go? Did anybody walk out of the audition?
Poorly. Yeah, it was a very, honestly, this is actually something I'm very passionate about. Our cast is primarily comedians because it exists on so many levels. You need to be really very savvy to be able to perform it at all 4 layers of what Slam Frank is, right? It's like a show within a show that's lovingly ripping on this while also authentically performing it to the best of your ability. Like, we've got a lot of amazing, talented musical theater people, but we really picked comedians first to be able to handle the mental gymnastics of being able to be a part of the show. And it meant like, okay, everybody, stay with me in order for me to because I ran all these auditions, in order to understand this piece, I'm going to have to give you directions like the worst artistic director you've ever heard. Cause I need you to be like, I would be like, I can't believe we're going to say this right now, but like, I need this to be gayer and blacker. Is that possible? Like it is, because this is, again, these are the rooms that we've been in. For me, it's also just this, like, I've been in these creative rooms where like the most holier than thou, like, creative director is going to say the worst thing possible to you. And for the love of the game, we're just going to ask you to butch it up a bit. Would you mind? It's the arts are hard, man. The arts are hard. And I think, and that's what I really loved about this show is it lets us kind of unpack that weird trauma of trying to both, bare your soul in a show and make the artistic director from Milwaukee happy. And that the impossibility of that task sometime as a performer is asinine.
Yeah. I'm quite a bit older than you are. And I can tell you that back in the 90s, people talked like that sort of naturally, organically. Like I can imagine somebody saying, make that blacker and gayer. Without too many people batting an eye. It was a way of communicating. Everybody sort of understood that everybody was on the same page and we were all good liberals and we were having like an aesthetic conversation. And I'm sure that some people were not comfortable with it. And that sort of collective discomfort gave way to the reckoning that we had. But, I often marvel at the fact that Avenue Q, remember that show? That was 2003.
Of course.
That was the dirty puppet show. And it was hilarious. It was making fun of PC back then. I mean, it was political correctness. There's a number, everyone's a little bit racist. It constantly keeps turning the corners and, these people hate these people and these people hate these people. And what a beautiful world. And that musical won numerous Tonys. And it's unthinkable today. Like, does anybody even perform it?
Oh, I mean, Avenue Q is the other, North Star for us, which is also written by Bobby Lopez, who wrote the Book of Mormon. So we are right in line with those writers. And believe you're absolutely right. Those shocking, oh my God, I shouldn't laugh at this moment that we are, inviting you to giggle at because the tunes are so jaunty. How do you get away with it, right? It's like, how do you get away with those things? It's because it is a puppet saying it. How do you get away with those things? It's because you're in a musical. It's like, this is the fatted calf. This is getting close to those things that, and you're right. Maybe in the 90s, that was exactly how everybody talked. And I'm not from that. So to be in the room and to be asking those things, it felt transgressive. And I think that is what's appealing is to be transgressive in what is such a safe art form. And that's, I think, like one of the most appealing things for me with Sam Frank is I'm like, oh my God, a musical that people are standing up and walking out of. This, like, nobody stands up and walks out. That's the only people who are standing up and walking out of musicals. It's South Park and it's Mel Brooks, and I'm proud to be in that company.
Have you actually had people walking out?
Oh, we have had a lot of people stand up and walk out for the initial run. So the initial run of Sam Frank, was slated to be, we just did it as a developmental run. I said, okay, let's see who's going to want to come see this show. It ran for about 4 weeks, and we sold out of those 4 weeks of tickets within about a week. And I went, okay. And that 4-week run turned into about 4 months of a sold out run. And in that time, it became like a who's who of to go see this scrappy, fun show. And in that time, we had a lot of people who loved us and a lot of people who hated us. So the game being, how many did we lose today? We have a running count in our show report is, how many walkouts and why and at what point in the show. And
right.
That being a fun game, because how many musicals actually get to be something that is so stirring, and instead of the thing that you instead of having you think about your babysitter and what you're going to have for dinner later, like, this is love me or hate me, but have an opinion, please.
Yeah. So how did that work though? Because you sold out almost immediately, so people presumably knew what the show was a little bit. They were excited to come. They were buying tickets. What do you think they thought it was going to be, the people who were walking out?
It depends on when they walked out. Not to give it away, but we really take a lot of crazy left turns and are playing with identity across this scale. We really leave no stone unturned when it comes to identity and how that can look, and what depictions of that identity is too much or too far. And really, like, everybody's got a different line for that. And it really, we've got a lot of people who, are fiercely liberal and who, might stand up and walk out because of our non-binary song. We had a lot of, and anytime anybody walks out during non-binary, they're called transphobes, because we usually heckle them as they leave too, because it's a participatory.
Oh, like, you're calling them transphobes because they're walking out, because they're
clearly they're not. Clearly they're not supportive enough of this cause. And so the game of, like, who is what and what means, but also just like the one thing we haven't touched, which is the identity of being Jewish, right? Like, this is as untouchable as it gets. Anne Frank is a real person that we know what we're doing. We say that we are going to be taking her story and we are remixing it to make it more accessible. Like, that is going to be a hot button issue for many Jewish people, and finding where the line is, and then also how many of them love us for having done that because of what their experience has been like, as being lumped into also being, too white but not white enough, and how this relates to what their identity experience has been their entire lives, and in the country right now, and in the world right now. And so this being a tool and a vehicle for people to be able to have these conversations. I think that this is the real big thing that excites me about Sam Frank, is that you can't leave it without an opinion. And instead of making a piece of art that tells you how to feel, my goal is that you leave and think about how you feel for yourself. And that's what I think has been the defining characteristic of theater for the past 10 years that I'm really tired of, is a bunch of people that pat themselves on the back for being virtuous because they checked all the boxes, instead of presenting a challenging expression of the playwright's intention and inviting you to go home and think about it and sit with how you felt having been on that ride.
I am what I am. I'm admitting it finally. Peter Van Dam. I am non-binary.
This is incredible.
Peter Van Daan comes out as non-binary. And this is a revelation to Anne, because up until this point, Anne thought that she was straight. And so because Peter is non-binary, that means that she's pansexual, and that, she no longer had to deal with the curse of being straight. And
Okay.
so they're now they're, they're closer to their more authentic selves, and thus better people for it.
So you say you've lost friends, or people are mad at you at least because you are involved in the show. Has that been the case for other members of the cast and other people involved?
I think a lot of people, anybody who has umbrage with Slam Frank and are concerned or upset with me for putting it on has not seen the show. And I really think that, and maybe for the exception of a few of them, but it is a purposefully antagonistic concept. It is a jagged piece of trolling in its marketing, and it can seem from the outside to be betraying of a lot of the morals and values that I have confidently, displayed for a long time. And I think that it's a scary thing to engage in, communication about, the current moment, or even to start to poke holes into what the culture has agreed upon. And so a lot of people have more than a little hostile in their criticism of the show, and to which I say, come to see the show and decide for yourself. I think that this is the thing about Slam Frank is someone can explain it to you all that you want, but I really, invite you to see it for yourself and make up your own mind about what it is trying to do and what it's really trying to do, and what that means for, for you is, I hope, a different answer for what it means for everybody else, because it is not a piece that's easy to pin down. And that's what I'm most passionate about making is, it's not a piece that reflects my morals, per se, because I don't think that having a piece that reflects exactly my morals and having the audience pat ourselves on the back makes for a good night out at the theater.
Yeah.
So again, to anybody who even in hearing us talk about the show, it's like it's a pale representation, it's a poor representation of the actual piece itself. It is like describing being on a roller coaster instead of just going on the ride. You are meant to ride the roller coaster, and then you can talk about what it felt like.
Yeah. So you're going to be joining us at our retreat in the fall. And I know you know a little bit about the Unspeakeasy and what we do, but so many of the people, most of the people, if not all of them, who come to our events are people whose opinions are not easy to pin down. I mean, this idea of being having messy politics, or kind of, forming your opinions on a case by case basis, that to me, it should be like a no-brainer. Like, yeah, of course, like just because I think one thing about gun control doesn't mean I think another thing about climate, whatever. But I think a lot of people have a really hard time with that. And so a lot of our participants and our members and the people who listen to this podcast have really suffered pretty serious social and often professional consequences for speaking out and not having the prescribed opinions, or just kind of having surprising opinions. And it's very difficult. It's, I don't want to overuse the word trauma. That's a word that's overused, but it has really, in some cases, affected people's lives profoundly. Were you at all concerned about your career? I mean, you mentioned a little bit in the beginning that you thought, oh my God, is my whole career going to be over if I'm involved with the show? Or, how do you kind of cope with that on a day-to-day basis?
I'm in a good position because I'm going to point you back to the point I made at the beginning of our conversation, which is I lived my dream come true. I moved to New York from a farm at 18 with my dream to be in the Book of Mormon on Broadway, and I did it. And so, I have since, becoming a creator and a producer and a loud voice in the industry now, because I am very outspoken about the problems of the industry and the things that are going on. And I'm making this show that's causing this big stir. I have for sure lost opportunities and have shifted the course of my career because I'm outspoken. But I also think that that's what makes a good career. Like, to be known for being being a voice, having an opinion, and in a landscape of people who are afraid to speak up, because it is a culture that penalizes that type of dissent, right? Like, I for sure, I have been mouthing off a lot lately, and I know I've lost opportunities for it, but I also know that I'm a more fulfilled creator, and I'm gonna be a part of making things, which, as I do think, is the trouble, right? It's like, when you want to be someone who makes something, that means you've got two choices. Either you make something that will make everybody happy, and thus it won't matter, and so it will be flat and bland and forgettable, or you will make something that is unafraid to ask questions and to be jagged and truthful, and that you will be open to attack and or just judgment in general, because you are being authentic. And so in being true to my roots as someone who went to the school of South Park, and who has learned from these idols about what it is to speak your mind and to put it into your practice, I've really have welcomed that challenge. And I've loved every step of the way, because I love my art form, and I'm doing it to the best of my ability. And this is the difference. I think some people are controversial just to be controversial, or
Right.
they're trolls to be trolls, or they're shit posting to shit post. And this is why, like, everything I do is a love letter to my art form, because I love culture, and I love being a creator, and I love this art form. And Slam Frank is a love letter to the American theater, because we want to be able to make great art, and we can't always do that if we're having to be confined to any type of societal rule,
Yeah.
which again doesn't put you on Broadway on 42nd Street next to the Lion King, but there is a place for you downtown, and there has always been a place for you downtown, and there should always be a place downtown for pieces that are going to be challenging, and those are the pieces that I want to be a part of.
Well, speaking of downtown, let's talk about Stage Time before we wrap up. So this is your theater company, artist collective. Oh, it's actually uptown. Excuse me. It's in Harlem. So
We're
that
up,
was
we're
my
down,
attempt at a segue.
We're all, no,
Okay.
it's all right. We're downtown, we're uptown. We've been all over, and I think that we're a New York-based company, right?
Okay.
You have to.
Okay.
We run the
you
whole.
don't have
We
a
run the whole city.
Okay, so stage time literally means giving performers stage time. People, in order to hone their craft, need literally to be on stage. And so you are giving excellent performers an opportunity to do their thing, whether they're puppeteers or trapeze artists or, drag queens, burlesque dancers, whatever. So talk about how that works and who you have up there on stage.
Sure thing. So Stage Time is a production company that I started about 3 years ago, and it's anchored around an old school vaudeville variety show. Basically, what I realized is, the greatest artists in New York City are all here, but you don't know where to find them. It really, there's a lot of people, that are out here, and it's a noisy atmosphere. How do you know, like, who's worth their salt? So I had this idea, to unite the best of the best in kind of an America's Got Talent style collection, right? To have, and across mediums, I'm talking like the best of Broadway, of drag, of burlesque, of stand-up comedy, of magic, of circus. And I had this idea to present this kind of tasting menu, this sampler of, this Avengers of New York City nightlife entertainment. And I went out and found the best, so you don't have to search for them, right? And I had this idea that if I could, find and nurture these entertainers, I would really be bringing the best of the best together in one room and be able to put on an exciting show. And that theory worked like gangbusters. It led to, one sold out show led to 3 years of a residency. And then, at its height, a weekly midnight show that I was doing while I was doing 8 shows a week on Broadway as Elder McKinley in the Book of Mormon. So this little idea for, hey, what if we put on a show, turned into this talent engine where I was discovering just the greatest minds, artistic minds of my generation. And more oftentimes than not, like they didn't even have a great social media following, right?
Yeah. How did you find them?
Well, word of mouth through the internet. Like I've been in New York City for 15 years, and good people keep good people. I'm fascinated by talent. I'm fascinated by people who are the best at what they do. And so I have an extraordinary social network of people who are, I'm out every night from the highest of class to the lowest of brow, from the Metropolitan Opera to all the way out in Coney Island. I've been there scouring New York, finding these stars to present to you, because there is no way to find a surefire thing these days in entertainment. And I think that is one of our biggest problems. Mediocrity is a mortal sin. And it is out of this kind of discovery engine where I found a script like Slam Frank that no one else was going to touch. Because this is why I then became a producer, because I went, oh my God, I'm finding the most talented, interesting, good-looking people in the world, and no one else is giving them a chance. And I can't believe it. I'm drowning. I'm sitting in a gold mine of talent, but yeah, I'm sitting in a gold mine of talent, and it feels like they're not getting the opportunities that they deserve. And so what if I could be a place that could give those talented people those opportunities? And so that's how I became a producer and got on this crazy ride.
So some people would say, well, the place to find talent now is TikTok, that this is what people are doing. This is what the kids are doing. They're a musician, they're a singer, they're a dancer, whatever. They're doing short form video. Okay. So tell us, great to hear that.
That's all.
But why?
Yeah, it's awful. I think that you're absolutely right. And it's a death knell to the live performing arts. Like, again, I am a live performer. I'm a live performer, and I am an athlete of that live performing, right? Like I said, there are less of us on Broadway than there are in the Olympics. There is a level of physical stamina and excellence that is gained by time on stage. And you do not get those reps by making TikToks in your living room. You don't. So we've got this crisis of culture where these are great performers in that medium, but they can't pull off a stadium show and they can't lead a Broadway show. But they're giving these opportunities that these live performers aren't, who would be extraordinary in those roles, because they don't have the same online following. And this is the thing that's driving me crazy, is that we are elevating people who are popular over people who are skilled practitioners of their craft. And that is decimating to the art form, and is something that I think that we need to fix as an industry. And this is I built an engine to help fix that problem, that rewards people for the quality of their live performance, not the amount of followers that they have.
Yeah. Well, I mean, curation has really, I want to say it's a lost art, but it's just kind of morphed into something else. We have curated content, but we don't have actual tastemakers or cultural gatekeepers that are coming from a place of, actually knowing what they're talking about. But I wonder if, like, is the algorithm just a tyrant? Because there are people, doing these short form videos. Some of them are really talented. I mean, most of them are mediocre. But like, if somebody is genuinely talented, but they just don't have the social media following, do you think it's hopeless for them? I mean, this is a question I ask myself all the time. I mean, in my space, in the sort of intellectual podcasting space, it's maddening because the people with these huge followings, don't know how to listen to a guest and ask a question. But it's, do you just sort of throw up your hands at the whole system?
Well, no, I built a system of my own. This was my answer was to go, fine, then I'll do it myself, because no one else is, right? Like, to your point, I see myself as a modern Ziegfeld. I am finding Fanny Bryce because I went, you're never going to believe this gal. Like, she's a star. And thank God that I did, because this person is deserving of this stage time, right? So we need to build new ecosystems that are finding and discovering those people, because it is hopeless otherwise. You are, if it is up to you to break in, then you do have to win the social media game. And that's just the ecosystem that we're in right now. I mean, even myself, like, I am dedicating a large portion of this next year to breaking into the digital market, because I have achieved a very successful following in person on the Lower East Side, and that is not good enough. Like, and there is reluctance and criticism, and then at the same time, you have to also be able to play the game. And this is, I think walking forward with a foot in both worlds is what I hope is the future. But right now, unfortunately, if you're not online, you don't exist, and that just is true.
No, it's heartbreaking. I mean, that's what I meant by throwing your hands up at the whole system. It's more, I guess I meant more just, accepting it as a reality. So are you, the people that you discover and you're putting on stage, are they then going out and trying to take what they are doing on stage and doing it in a short form video? Like, are you facilitating that? What's the sort of order of operations there? Or where do they go next? What's the next step after they've succeeded on your stage?
Well, that's a great question, because that's exactly what I asked myself is, once I find someone who is, so worthy of this time and attention, really then being able to give them resources to help incubate their talents further, right? Like, this is the other part of it, is that not only you have to be talented, but you have to be your own editor and your own videographer and your own sound designer. And people don't have the time or energy or resources to be able to do that. And then this also rewards like wealth inequality, like anything else. It's a lot easier when you have the money to pay for the nice toys. You're going to book that job over the person who, again, is just a working class kid who has the goods to make it, right? And we're worse off because we're not finding the person who's deserving of it. So
the self-tape. Yeah.
Yes, of course. So this is why I then went on to create the Stage Time Studios, which is where I'm coming from here today, which is an incubator for the arts. It's a nonprofit that I started that is giving these access and opportunities to people based on the merit of their skills to then help nurture and develop their next piece of art that we can showcase with our more significant platform, so that they don't have to be so reliant on breaking and winning the algorithm. So this is a machine that, again, I'm trying to solve these problems, and instead of just complaining about it, I went, fine, then I'll build an engine that will help foster and develop these artists who would be out in the cold otherwise. And that is where and how this machine is how Slam Frank now has come into the world. We've been able to lean upon the resources of the infrastructure that I've built. And the goal now with the success of Slam Frank is to have a pipeline of discoverability where I can be searching and finding that next generation's voice, be able to provide them with the resources that they need to succeed and the mentorship and connections that they need to then make a go of it in the real world that would never hope to find them otherwise.
Have you ever found a really talented person who then finds out what you're doing and says, oh, I don't want to be associated with this. I wish I could work with you, but I just can't do it?
No, because I don't let the politics of Slam Frank define me either, right? Like, I think that I want to be an artist that has space to hold, a story and help a certain viewpoint come into the world, not based on identity and not based on politics, but because it is the most compelling story to tell. And that's what I love is highlighting artists and performers who are the best storytellers and the best artists, and regardless of their ideals to a certain point. And so also then building a space where we can have people who are on very different spectrums of ideals and visions of the world sharing spaces and collaborating to make things that would be better than if they had not met at all. Like, this is the other problem is, we need to build these third spaces where we can get people out of their vacuums, where we can have people who disagree. Because if you're just in rooms with people who agree with you, you're just patting yourself on the back all the time. So it is anybody who has a problem with Slam Frank or has, it's an invitation to have a dialogue about what that is and to figure out what this cultural moment that we're all trying to untangle is for everybody, because we are sharing this moment as a collective, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, well, I just admire what you're doing so much because, I've been sitting here for a decade or more talking about culture war stuff and trying to have the dangerous conversations and, get people out of tribal thinking on all this kind of stuff. But what has been missing in the sort of, heterodoxy, the sort of podcast space, this kind of, public intellectuals that are now called thought leader space, is actual art. We're talking about ideas, but we're not, taking the ideas and making new stuff. And it's just so fantastic to see you doing that. And I really hope people follow suit.
Thank you. I love that you just said that. I think that's because that's how you reach someone, right? Is by yelling an opinion or by, figuring out who can get the better clip of who. You're not actually in conversation. What a piece of theater does is it takes you on that ride and then again invites you to sit with what you've just watched and make up your mind for yourself. And so I also think that comedy is the great bridge to the fact that we're able to take the piss out of each other and be like, hey, we're all leaving here bloody, which equals the playing field a little bit. And I do think that we all need to not take ourselves so seriously. And the first step towards any type of reconciliation or a bridge towards whatever this next chapter of American culture is, in figuring out wherever the hell we're going is to be able to have some common ground, and comedy is the shortest path to that commonality.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I cannot thank you enough for what you're doing, and thank you for talking with me, and thank you for joining us in the fall. You're going to be at our small gathering for big ideas. That is going October 19th through 21st. You're going to be with us on the 20th, and basically, we're going to continue this conversation. So the way these things work is they're very small, totally off the record. People come from all over the country. We're selling out really quickly, and I'm going to talk to you, and then they're going to talk to you, and it's just going to be a big discussion, and everybody can take part. And I'm sure that people are going to be really excited about what you're doing. So I can't wait for that. In the meantime, tell us where people can see Slam Frank, get tickets, what they need to do to get in on it.
Absolutely. Slam Frank is opening at the Orpheum Theater on October 4th. Previews start on September 17th. Tickets are on sale right now, and our cast album is available for purchase on slamfrankmusical.com. I'm PJ Adzima, and you can follow along with me on Instagram at PJ Adzima. And that's where you're going to be able to keep up best with all the comings and goings with me and Stage Time and Slam Frank and whatever the heck we're going to be producing next.
Okay. Well, what's going to happen if you do make it to Broadway? Are you just going to say, no Midtown for us?
Who's to say? That means that Slam Frank has been more successful than my wildest dreams. But Slam Frank has already been more successful than my wildest dreams. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but a lot of my dreams come true. So I'll circle back to you once we've got a hit show on our hands. How about that? Okay. Well, yeah, I'd like to see it right there next to the Lion King. That would be a head explosion for everybody. So yes, it certainly would.
All right, PJ, thank you so much, and I'll see you in the fall.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you, Meghan.